The Atlanta Braves weekend got off to a fantastic start, winning the first two games against the Rockies, but it ended in more embarrassment for this team as they take a dreadful loss on Sunday. We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button. We're approaching 14,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for all the support there. Hit the thumbs up button so others can find us and leave me a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio version, where we still get the majority of our listeners, make sure you leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And big shout out, as always, to my everydayers out there. Today's episode, we're going to take a look back at the weekend and really going to harp a lot on what happened Sunday because I was in attendance and I kind of wish I wasn't. So we'll get into all of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all the strikeouts. Ronald Acuna Jr. just still continuing to be a lot of fun to watch and one of the best players in the game. So we'll touch on all of that in today's episode of Locked On Braves. Before we do that, though, before we get into what happened on Sunday and the embarrassment that was, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hope you had a great Father's Day, spending time with your family. So I want to give a big shout out to all the fathers out there, fellow fathers like myself. Thank you to all those in the comment section on social media, sending me a happy Father's Day. I appreciate that. So I want to make sure that I send it back to you. So I had a great day despite the result that happened. And let's talk about what happened overall on the weekend. The Braves do get a series win over the Rockies, but again, with the way it ended, it feels like he got swept. That's how bad it was on Sunday. And I talked about this going into the series. I talked about it last week. This really needed to be a sweep. And I know that's unfair. I know it's unfair to say you have to sweep a team in the middle of June. But with where the Braves are and with where the Rockies are, it's really, you've had two chances now to sweep a team that is going to end up being historically one of the worst teams of all time. And twice you've had chances to do so and laid a big egg in the finale. You remember going back to Colorado, the Braves won the first two games of that series. We thought they were on a roll. They were looking good. You had Chris Sale go in the finale of that one, and he pitched a great game, but your offense didn't show up. And similar vibes in this one. You win the first two games. Things are looking great. You're feeling pretty good about yourselves. You don't pitch Chris Sale in this one. You push him back and save him for the Mets series, but Grant Holmes throws a great game too, and your offense lays a big egg. And it's just kind of those same type of vibes, but you've had two chances to sweep this team and you couldn't get it done. And this Rockies team has been swept in half of their series this year. And like I said, the Braves have had a chance to do it twice, winning the first two games and then dropping the finale. This is a really bad team, but you know what? It was clear the Braves were the worst team on Sunday. I mean, they played awful in that game. And look, I put some of the blame up front on Brian Snitker in the front office, whoever made the decision to push Chris Sale. And let me say, I don't know that that's the complete reason that they lost this game. But I'll say this about the decision, because remember, in Colorado, they didn't do this. In Colorado, we thought maybe they would push Chris Sale back a day and just try to finish off the sweep with somebody else. This Rockies team's so bad, we can beat them with whoever we throw out there. And what happened? The offense laid an egg. And the issue that I have with this and this line of thinking is the message that it sends to your team to say, okay, we've won the first two games of this series. And if I remember correctly, in that finale out in Colorado, yes, they threw Sale, but Snitker also put together, a D type of lineup. In this one, you push Chris Sale, and you almost go ahead and send a message to your team. We already won the series. We're going to go ahead and save our ace for the next series because that one's more important to than this game today. And that is what I take a big issue with right here. If I'm the Atlanta Braves and Brian Snitker, and like I said, I don't put this all on Snitker. I'm sure this maybe was a front office decision too, but I take a big issue with that because every game is crucial for this Atlanta Braves team right now. You cannot take out Chris Sale because you want to win one of these games against the Mets. Look, the division is over. And I get it. Chris Sale gives you a better chance of beating a better team in the Mets. I get that. And you should be able to throw a Grant Holmes who strikes out everybody. You should be able to do that and go out and beat a Rockies team. I'm not trying to make excuses for the players not getting it done today, but I do think it is a bit faulty, and in a baseball game is there's very much a mental aspect to baseball. And when you say, well, we've won the first 2 games, I'm going to take out my best starter because we should just be able to beat this team. We're better than this team. We should beat them with whoever we throw out there. We're going to save Chris Sale for a bigger game. That game on Sunday mattered. Every game that you play right now is highly, highly important. And so just the message to me that it sends when you make a decision like that, it sends a message, I think, to the team, to the fan base to say, we won the series. It's okay. We win this one on Sunday. That's great too, but we're going to focus more on this upcoming series and making sure that we have Chris Sale ready to help us maybe win one of those games. It just had that kind of vibe. And look, I was in the stadium on Sunday. It had that vibe from the very beginning. It was a very, I hate to say kind of a lazy Sunday type of crowd. I'm certainly not putting this on the fans, but it's because they weren't giving us anything to get excited about. My wife looked at me in the 4th inning. She said, we haven't even done the chop yet. And I said, there's been no reason to do the chop. They've given us no reason to do it. It just had that type of vibe from the very beginning. The moment that you win the series, you say, okay, we're good now. We're going to push Chris Sale back. It sends out those vibes that we're not fully committed to winning this game on Sunday. Maybe I'm dead wrong in that. And like I said, maybe it had no effect, but from an outside perspective, that's definitely the feeling I got. And with the way the game played out, that was the feeling I got as well. And that cannot be your mentality when you have fallen this far behind. Every game is very important. Look, the Mets are a good team. You may throw Chris Sale in that game and still lose to them because you're a good team. But you had a chance to beat a bad team on Sunday, and and like I said, might not have mattered if the offense, just doesn't come to play again. But I don't feel like you gave yourself the best chance, and I don't think you sent the right message to say every game's important right now. We are not going to let up, because what I fear decisions like that do is it makes you get a little complacent. And like I said, baseball, very, very mentally taxing, draining game, especially when you play 101-62. And again, it's not fair to sit here and say you have to sweep a team, because sweeps are hard to come by against anybody. But it's where you've put yourself. It is the hole that you have dug yourself into that you cannot let games like this get away. And I just tend to believe that the tone and the vibe around pushing back your best starter sent a message through the clubhouse that, okay, this game's not as important as the one on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever Chris Sale's going to pitch now. And the game kind of felt like that and played out like that. I mean, there were just so many costly mistakes, so many awful at-bats. And I feel like that had an impact on the game. Maybe I'm wrong. And certainly let me know in the comment section below. But that was just the feeling that I got from the moment that before the game even started. That was my concern. I had the same concern before the game even started. And then it definitely played out that way. And again, you won the series. That's great. They need to win every series the rest of the way in order to just have a chance to get into the postseason. But this was a chance you had to sweep. And I think what makes it even worse is the way that the game played out on Sunday. It was one of the ugliest games I've ever attended. And the fielding error by Holmes early in the game. No business throwing that base. First of all, should have fielded. It was a terrible bunt. should have been a very easy play, but you mishandle it, and then you double down and throw the ball down the right field corner, allowing the runner to get to third to score the first run of the game. The offense getting no hit by Austin Gomber, making his debut this season. He's pitched in the big leagues before, but his first game pitch this season, fortunately, that's the case because he didn't go long in the game. He might have thrown a complete game shutout against them today. But you're getting no hit by Austin Gomber through 4 2/3 innings. And it was just awful at bats against him. Then you had the base running mistake by Acuna, which I understand the aggressiveness. Look, the ball was already at the left fielder by the time he got to second base. And all that, he made a great slide. And if he would have held on to the bag, he would have been safe at third. But it felt like, I would imagine, if I could ask Acuna, probably felt like he needed to do that with the way the offense was playing. That he thought, I have to be ultra aggressive here because we're not scoring today. But it was a mistake, and it ended up being an inning where you get 4 straight singles and you only get 1 run out of it. So you had that base running mistake there. Then you had the disastrous 6th run 7th inning. After you had those 4 singles to tie the game up, you come right back out in the 7th inning, the top of the 7th inning, first batter, home run, you're down 2-1. And then it just unravels from there in an inning that I wish my eyes didn't see, but unfortunately they did, live and in color. Then you had the 3-run 8th innings. Not that the 7th inning was enough. Then you have the 3-run 8th inning. You had the bases clearing triple on a ball that lands on the chalk. And isn't that just Aaron Bummer? I mean, and he's been great lately. And I've seen a lot of people upset about Daniel De Los Santos in that inning. He's been great lately too. He had a bad outing today, but it's just everything just kind of unraveled for the Atlanta Braves late in this game. And again, that's where I go back to kind of the mentality of it coming into it. It's just like they weren't awake. They weren't ready. They weren't focused. And you cannot have that right now. You cannot have that. If this team wants to get to the postseason, you cannot have that loss of focus. And again, it just all comes back to me when you say, we're not going to throw our best starter in this one. We're going to save him for another game. Again, me personally, I feel like that sends a message, and you saw it play with the lack of focus that this team had today. And then just kind of the cherry on top for me being at the game, I sat around to that top of the 7th. I sat around to that top of the 8th, all because I wanted to see Ronald Acuna Jr. get one more at bat, because at least in all of this terrible game that I've watched, I wanted to see my favorite player hit again. And what did they do? They pinch hit for Zokar for Acuna in the 8th inning. And at that point, I told my wife, we got to get out of here. But that wasn't even it. And I tweeted this out before we left the stadium. I said, we're going to have a position player pitch against the Rockies because we're getting beat so badly against a team that is going to go down as one of the worst teams in baseball history. The Braves got beat by them so badly that they had to put a position player in there to save the bullpen. And he was the best bullpen arm of the game. That's how hilariously bad the Braves were on Sunday. And again, maybe I'm completely off here, but it's just the way that it played out. It feels like this team wasn't completely locked in. They weren't fully focused. And I think part of that's because of the mentality coming from the top down of this game, that they didn't view it as important as upcoming games. And every game has to be vitally important for this team right now. So, and I get your point too, Jeffrey, who I know is an everydayer with no run support. I'm glad Sale wasn't wasted today. I get that, but that's not my overall point of this. My point is the message that it sends by not throwing Sale in this game and by saving him for a game that's more important. This game was important. This game was important. You needed to win this game. And again, I feel, and maybe you feel differently, Jeffrey, maybe others do. I just feel that sends a message to the team, and the way that the team played, it felt like they had the same feeling and vibe that I had, that management, front office, whoever made the decision to say, this game's not as important as the next one. But let me know in the comments section below. Maybe I'm way off base on that one. That was just a feeling I had, again, even before the game started, but certainly after, during, watching that, and after, I got that same type of feeling. All right, but next we'll get into the particulars of the weekend. You had some great performances from the pitching staff. You had some great performances by the offense in the first 2 games of this series. We'll get into all of that here next. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, of course not. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that for you instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more asking, who's handling this? And the AI agent handles after-hours call, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Braves listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you, as always, making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out the podcast over at Locked On MLB. They'll get you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball, talking about maybe a big trade in Major League Baseball that we'll touch on here later. Solely getting you caught up on that, as well as the guys from MLB Game Night, giving you the biggest highlights from each and every day. Let's get into the particulars from the weekend, starting with the offense. On Friday, you had 12 runs, 15 hits, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts, only 3 extra base hits out of those 15 hits, but 2 of them were 3-run home runs. That's what this offense is always looking for. 5 for 12 with runners in scoring position. Was not a great start by the offense, but you got the big 3-run home run from Michael Harris, which felt huge and was a big momentum changing swing in that game as the Braves went on to score 11 unanswered runs. You saw Ronald steal his first stolen base in this. I mentioned this on the postcast after that one, that I don't know that that was a sign necessarily that Ronald's going to start running. I think that was a hit and run. It was just a happy coincidence. Even watching him at the game on Sunday when he was on base, because of course he got on base a couple more times because that's what he does. Just looking at him over there at first, he wasn't getting big leads. It wasn't anything serious over there. So I still don't think we're seeing a Ronald that's going to be running a lot. On Saturday, you got 4 runs, 7 hits, 3 walks, just 6 strikeouts, but only 1 extra base hit. But it was a 2-run shot by Ronald Acuna, 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. They had 3 2-out RBI on Saturday, which is nice to see. I did not love the lull in the second half of that game and was worried that that was going to lead into a lull on Sunday. And it certainly seemed like the case. They had 1 hit in their final 3 innings on Saturday. And then, as I mentioned, they didn't have any hits through the first 4 2/3 innings on Sunday. So, I mean, that's almost a game's worth of innings there, and you had 1 hit. So I don't love the inconsistency of the offense like that. Sunday, they had 1 run on 6 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. 4 of those hits were all singles coming to start 1 inning. And like I said, they only scored 1 run out of that because of Ronald's over-aggressiveness on the base pass, which I'm usually not. And look, he would have been safe. It was a fantastic slide. Just couldn't stay on the bag. Good by him to at least recognize that, stay in a rundown to allow Riley to get into scoring position, but just not enough. No extra base hits. This team can't win. I mean, it goes without saying, but they can't win if they don't get extra base hits, and they really can't win unless they're getting multi-run homers. That really seems to be the only way that this offense can put up big numbers in a game, and they did not get that at all on Sunday. On the pitching side, Bryce Elder on Friday, he got mashed. It was a rough one for him. 3 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned, 2 strikeouts, and a home run. 14 balls put in play. 8 of them were hard hit balls. Only 2 of them had negative launch angles. And look, Bryce Elder can give up hard contact, but you got to hope that it's beat into the ground. And that wasn't the case. 6 of those hard hit balls had good launch angles, which between 11 and 29 degrees. He's actually lucky that it wasn't worse on Friday night. And that will happen sometimes with your 5th and 6th starter. Not worried about it with Bryce Elder. He has been good for the most part this season. And the Rockies were swinging a good bat coming into this series. They had scored 5 runs or more in 4 straight games coming into the series on Friday night. And they just got all over Bryce Elder. Great job by the bullpen, though, in that one as they shut things down the rest of the way. From there, they did a really good job. You had Bummer, you had Pierce Johnson come in to like the 5th inning of that game. I thought Snicker did a great job managing the bullpen in that one, going for the win. You had Dylan Dodd, Enio De Los Santos, Iglesias looked good, Dylan Lee closing things out. They had 5 2/3 scoreless on Friday. And then on Saturday, you had Spencer Strider easily his best performance of the year. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, no earned, 13 strikeouts. You thought that was something. Grant Holmes topped that on Sunday. Just 87 pitches for Strider, too. 4 hard hit balls, all over 102 miles per hour. That's half of the balls put in play for him. But 3 of them were for hits. 24 whiffs. That's a 52% whiff rate. 17 of 23 swings on that slider. 45% CSW percentage. The 4-seam velo was up over 1 mile per hour, averaging 96.2 and topping out at 98.1. So, look, you can sit here and say, yeah, it was the Rockies, especially when you saw what Grant Holmes was able to do on Sunday. You can say, yes, this was the Rockies, one of the worst offenses in baseball. But the stuff, particularly in the first 3 innings for Spencer Strider, looked like vintage Spencer Strider. Not only was the fastball velocity up, more 96, 97, but he was commanding it, and it all looked really good. Command kind of started to come apart a little bit in the 4th inning, and was a little bit better in the 5th and 6th innings. But those first 3 innings in particular, it looked like vintage Spencer Strider, and it gives me hope that not just a velocity jump, but also just a command of those pitches, that maybe he's getting closer and closer to being that Spencer Strider. And then Grant Holmes had to one-up him on Sunday, 15 strikeouts and 6 in the 3rd innings. Unfortunately, though, he gave up 3 runs, 2 of them earned, and the unearned one was all on him. You had a fielding error and then a 2-base throwing error. 25 whiffs for Grant Holmes, 16 of 28 on the slider. If you're a pitcher and you're facing the Rockies, not that you need much help, but spam a bunch of sliders. He had a 45% called strike plus whip percentage. So 2 incredible back-to-back outings by Strider and Holmes in this one. Unfortunately, the bullpen, pretty rough day on Sunday. Enyel De Los Santos, who again has been really good. I saw a lot of people saying you got to cut De Los Santos. He has been maybe the Braves' best reliever, or at least one of them, coming into the game on Sunday. He unfortunately just did not have it in this one. And some of these were ground balls. They were hit pretty hard, but they just happened to find some holes. But it just wasn't his day. And that'll happen sometimes, but you got to find ways to work through that. And it's the walks that really killed you. Walking the number 9 hitter on a very close pitch. And it was, from what I could tell, at least it was a wide zone today, and he didn't get it because he missed location. Then Jose Ruiz come in. Now, if Ruiz wants to be cut, he probably should have been cut already. You should have kept Blewett over him. But he came in, couldn't get anybody out, and was just a mess from that point on. The defense had 4 double plays on Friday night, even with some defensive lapses in that game. Nick Allen kicked a ball that was obviously hit by Orlando RC, because that's the way it's got to be. Rockies made 4 errors on Friday night. It was a wet field that night with some rain in the area. But Michael Harris made a great catch on Saturday in center field. Defense, like I said, outside of Grant Holmes' miscue on Sunday, I thought was okay. But really, it's really just the way you lost on Sunday. And again, if the Braves were at 500, a couple of games above 500, and you win the series, even if it is against the Rockies, you're okay. You win a series, you feel pretty good about it. The reason that I am upset and frustrated about it is, one, just kind of the way that they played on Sunday. Maybe it's because I was in attendance and it just made it that much worse for me. But just the lack of focus, the lack of, I don't know. It's just the way that it felt, the vibes that you had in the game on Sunday. It just felt like they weren't there, and you can't have that. You can't have that if you want any chance of coming back and making the postseason. You have got to be completely locked in on every game. And it didn't feel like that was the case on Sunday from the very beginning. And I don't care how bad a team is, you lose focus and you're not fully locked in, you're going to get beat. Even if it's one of the historically worst teams of all time, you're going to get beat. And that's what has me more frustrated than anything right now with this Atlanta Braves team. You had a chance to sweep this weekend, feel good about yourselves going into that Mets series. And yeah, you won the series, but it feels like you lost it, in my opinion. At least that's how I feel. Hopefully the players don't feel that way. They'll get an off day on Monday. They'll come back refocused to take on the Mets, because you still got a lot of work to do here. And again, I just felt like you didn't take enough advantage of what you had in front of you. All right, next we'll get into that big trade news. Rafael Devers getting moved, and we'll also talk about what's coming up next for this Atlanta Braves team. We'll do that here next. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades at Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it is your turn. So join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Again, join their TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com. Plus, when you use our promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off your first order. Again, that is promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order when you go to supplyhouse.com. So a bit of a bombshell trade-wise, not for the Atlanta Braves, but around Major League Baseball, is the Boston Red Sox traded Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants. This, when I first saw it, I thought it was fake news because this is a massive, massive trade. Devers is owed $250 million still on his contract. The Giants are taking on all of that, and they are sending pitcher Kyle Harrison, pitcher Jordan Hicks, prospect James Tibbs, and prospect Jose Bellows. So, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into what the Red Sox got in this one. I know Tibbs was a big prospect coming out of Florida State. I did not like him nearly as much as I liked Cam Smith, which I think most people would probably agree with that now. But doesn't mean he's not a good prospect. It's just those two played on the same team. I did not see this coming. Now, the one thing I will say that this affects the Braves, I talked about this on the podcast last week, how you got to hope that some of those teams ahead of the Braves in the standings that maybe you're overperforming fall down a little bit. But with the Giants, and the Giants are one of those teams that I feel like are probably overperforming at the moment that maybe could take a step back. But now they go get somebody in Devers. And to help out that offense with the good pitching that they have. And now you really do look at the Giants as a contender long-term. And it's just crazy to me how that relationship just completely fell apart. And I'm not going to get into who to blame on all of that. But I mean, the signing of Alex Bregman felt like the doom of the Boston Red Sox and Rafael Devers, for right or wrong. And you can certainly make the case that Devers hasn't been a team player in all of this, but I don't know, just odd to see it happening. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. Mike Gregg says the Red Sox get a haul. I don't know about that. Again, I know Kyle Harris and Jordan Hicks are just kind of some fine arms. Tibbs is a big prospect. I don't know about the Bello kid or not, but that is quite the trade, quite the trade at the middle of June. I know a lot of people want to ask me, why have the Braves not made any big moves? And I keep telling you that it's because people don't make big moves this time of year. Well, that certainly throws that out the window. And now that's a big move for the Giants, a team that the Braves are certainly going to have to try to overtake if they want to get into the postseason. And the Giants go out and make a huge move for Rafael Devers, but they also have Matt Chapman, who's really good at third base. So I guess Devers isn't going to get to play third there either. So that just means tensions were that bad with he and the Red Sox. Now, as far as what's up next for the Atlanta Braves, they do get an off day on Monday, and then they have 3 at home against the Mets. Like I said, the division is done at this point, but you certainly want to try to take it to the Mets, who are maybe starting to falter a little bit. I know they had a rough series against the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Braves are 4-6 in their last 10. But maybe you're getting the Mets at the right time, can take advantage of that, get a big series win. I mean, look, it is about winning series at this time. You win every series the rest of the way, and you're going to be into the postseason. But that is a tall task. And that's why when you're playing teams like the Rockies and like the Marlins, who they'll play after that, you got to try to get some sweeps in there, because you're probably going to lose a series. You just can't get swept anymore. And again, it's a hard task, but it's the where you have put yourself because of how you played early in the season. So you get 3 at home against the Mets. They're going to be without Senga, who just went on the IL. Like I said, they've just lost 3 against the Rays, so maybe they're down a little bit at the moment. So hopefully you're getting them at the right time, because the Braves need all the help that they can get at the moment. Then you hit the road, you play 3 against the Marlins, and then you go to New York to play them 4 times. So it's a big stretch coming up here for the Atlanta Braves. They're going to play them at 7 times over the next week and a half. And then you end the month with 3 at home against the Phillies. Like I said, I think the division is done. It would take some sort of miracle like we've never seen before for them to come back and win the division. They are 13 games back right now of the New York Mets. You win all 7 of these games coming up against the Mets, then you're still a good ways back of them in the division. And that's basically what it's going to take just to give them a chance. But for me, it's just like I've been talking about, seeing this team start to play better baseball consistently. And you were hoping that was going to be the case over the weekend against the Rockies, get them some momentum and some confidence going into this series. And it feels like all of that was wiped away with the way, not just that they lost on Sunday, but the way that they lost on Sunday. So let me know in the comments section below, do you have any hope left for this team? Hopefully you do. Again, it's not fun to sit here and watch these games every night and just think that your team is completely done. I still have hope that this team can turn it around. Confidence is another matter. And my confidence is at an all-time low right now for this Braves team, but I'm still hopeful that something good will happen. And either way, we get to watch Ron Acuna Jr. play each and every night, and that is always a lot of fun. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much. Protect PR in here from the beginning on this one. Mike Gregg as well. Stephen P. Moises Perez, AJ Evans, Matt Karcher, everydayer on here. Joe Mia, another everydayer. Thank you so much for joining me here live on today's episode. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to you next time.